Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Anton here, and today we're going to go ahead and take a look at the commands framework for Discord Pi. I personally really enjoy using it because, one, it's very powerful. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. And yeah, that's all that really needs to be said. If you don't know what the commands framework is, basically it's an extension from the base library of Discord Pi. You don't need to use it when you're making your Discord bots with the library, but it is recommended because it does provide a rich command handler system, and it's much better than just having like a whole if else branch to check for which command is which. And of course, yeah, it's just much more better. Okay. All right, cool. So obviously you want to make sure you have the basics of Python down, because if you don't understand Python, you're not going to understand how to make a Discord bot. I mean, obviously you can just copy and paste code, but it's not gonna go too far for you. Okay, you're gonna run into an error, and you're not gonna know how to fix it, and then you're gonna ask people to spoon feed you. So I'm just making this clear that please make sure that you understand how Python works, understand basic concepts of programming, and of course make sure you at least know how to make a bit of a Discord bot. But if you don't know how to make a Discord bot, though, you can actually do this all from scratch. But you don't actually need much knowledge of the entire library to use the commands framework, in my opinion. Obviously, other people might disagree, but I'm going to try my best to explain everything as we go. Okay, so I'm going to be using pipenv, which is I can basically create virtual environments for our for Python projects. It pretty much allows us to manage our dependencies much better. So that way, everything that's inside that virtual environment stays in that virtual environment, so it doesn't affect anything outside of it. Okay, and there's a chance that I might need to use a different version of specific package. So instead of installing it globally, I can just install it in a virtual environment. Okay, and when I leave that virtual environment, I can go back to the original versions of my dependencies, if that makes sense. Okay, so I have a directory called dpi. Nothing is in it right now. Obviously, it's just empty. We're gonna go ahead and say pipenv install, and this is gonna install version 3.7.4. Okay. Okay, cool, awesome. So now that we have that set up, it's gonna create a pip file for us. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and remove the virtual environment because I want to use 3.6. Because I think there was a little problem with a specific module that I was trying to use. So I'm going to do pip install again. That'll install whatever version I have specified over here. You're going to see it's going to create a virtual environment in 3.6.7, which is awesome, which is exactly what we want. So now that I have my virtual environment set up, I can go ahead and install our dependencies. So we're going to do pipenv install discord.py and then python-env. If you don't want to use a virtual environment, you don't need to. Obviously, it would work the same way if you just did pip install discord.py or pip install python-env. But I'm just using pipenv because I think it's good practice too, especially if you want to get really serious with developing in Python. You definitely learn how to use a virtual environment. Okay, and aside from that, it just manages your packages much better. Okay, so when you deploy your code to like a cloud service, it can easily automatically just look in that pip file, install all of your dependency for you, and then bam, you're good. All right, so we have our dependencies set up. Okay, you can see underneath the bracket packages part, this pretty much describes all of our dependencies, and you can see we have two dependencies. We have discord-py. I think it's because obviously you can have a dot inside this file anyways. You can see, I think the asterisk is for the latest version. Not too sure about, but doesn't really matter. I'm gonna go ahead and create a scripts tag over here, and I'm gonna say dev equals. So I'm gonna use nodemon. If you don't know what nodemon is, it's a very good tool to use when it comes to development. Pretty much it'll listen to file changes inside a directory, and every single time you save or every single time you make a change and save, it's going to auto restart your process. So I don't have to go ahead and exit the process and restart the command or restart the process with the command. It will just auto restart for us. So we're going to nodemon, and we have to pass in the exec flag, and we basically have to specify the interpreter, which is Python 3, and we're going to say the name of the file to execute, which is bot.py, and I'm going to create that right over here. Okay, awesome. I'm gonna exit that out. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead, and since we're using python.env module, basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a file called .env, and I want to create a variable. Let me see if I can get my Discord, not Discord. I'm gonna get my bot token real quick. And what I want to do is I want to create an environment variable, but I don't want to set it on my system. I'm going to create it in that .env file. So that way I can use the python.env module to load that environment variable. Okay. And the reason why I want to do that is because I don't want to store my token, or I don't want to put my token in like the main entry point of our bot. Because if I, let's say for example, if I need someone to look at my code and if I have my token over there, it's just going to be exposed, obviously, and it's just bad practice. It's better to keep it in a file like a .env file or some kind of config file that only the server or the environment will know and no one else will know. In this case, we have our bot underscore token environment variable. So in order to actually use it, what we need to do is we need to actually load our environment variables first. So to do that, we're going to actually have to do two things. We have to do import OS, and we need to do from .env load, or not load, import load.env. Okay. And then what we have to do is we have to go ahead and say load underscore .env. We have to call that function. And then now I can go ahead and do print os.get env and then bot underscore token, or bot underscore token. So because I have this script over here, instead of doing Python 3, what is it called? Bot.py. Instead of doing this, well, actually, it wouldn't even work because no, it does. Well, obviously, we have to run it with pipenv because we are using pipenv. Because if you just run it with Python 3, I think it's going to run globally. So it might throw some errors if you have specific dependencies that are not installed globally. But the proper way to run it when you're in a virtual environment is to do pipenv run Python 3, the interpreter. So that's Python 3 bot.py. Okay, so it says loading .env environment variables, blah, blah, and then there we go. Okay, awesome. Okay, now let's say if I don't have this function call over here, let's see what happens over there. You're going to see, oh, it still works apparently. It's actually very interesting. I never knew that, actually. It might be, I don't know. That's actually strange. Let me actually go ahead and get rid of that real quick. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I'm pretty sure it's actually very strange how that doesn't... Anyways, it doesn't really matter, but just make sure you have this over there, because I don't know. I think I might actually have my bot token, like I have this environment variable stored on my system. I'm not too sure, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so let's actually go ahead and get started. Now that we have our environment set up, we can go ahead and import the Discord commands, the Discord Pi commands extension. So we're gonna say from discord.ext. Okay, we're gonna say import commands. Cool. Now we're gonna go ahead and create an instance of our bot, or we can call it client. We're gonna say client equals commands.bots. Okay, I guess commands.bots, like that. Okay, cool. So we're basically creating an instance of the bot class. So the bot class is basically a subclass of the base discord.client. So if you're used to, if you've never used the commands framework before, and if you use the base library, you would do import discord, and then you do client equal discord.client like this. Okay, this base client, right? This base Discord client is the superclass of the bot class. That's part of the commands framework. Okay, what that means is basically every single property, method, event, whatever the whatever public attributes the base client has, the subclass, which is bot in this case, is going to inherit it. Okay, and I don't think Python has any private attributes anyways, so I don't, but yeah, let's go ahead and say from discord.ext import commands. We're gonna call it client equals commands.bot, and then over here we can specify some positional arguments. So you can see there's a bunch that we can do. So the first one is the command prefix. So we're gonna do command prefix equals, we'll do hyphen, or we'll do hyphen. And then by default there is a help command, but we can set this to none. Okay. So let's go ahead and listen to a couple of events. So let's go ahead and do client.events. Let's do async def on underscore ready. That doesn't take in any parameters. We're just gonna say, let's see, bot has logged in. Okay, so if I save, now watch this. I'm gonna go ahead and say pipenv run, and the name of our script was dev. Okay, it's gonna start it in nodemon. Oh, we didn't log our bot in. That was a mistake. So we're gonna have to do client run. We're gonna do os.get env bot underscore token like that. Okay, so that should log our bot in. You can see, yes, it's there. Okay, bot has logged in and our bot is logged in. Awesome. So far everything that we've done so far, the only difference was that is we imported the commands framework, but listening to events is very similar. However, once we get to cogs though, we're gonna see how we can actually group certain events and group certain commands in different cogs, and I'll explain what cogs are later on. But for now, we're just gonna worry about registering a couple of commands first with the commands framework. Okay, so right now we don't have any commands set up except for the default help command. So if I do -help, well, actually that's actually disabled. So let's actually re-enable it. So let's do -help, and you're gonna see it gives a simple help message, which is pretty good for now, but we don't really need it, so we're just going to disable it. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up a basic command. So we're gonna say client.command, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and say async def, we're gonna call this hello. So whenever you're using the commands framework, okay, you can specify certain arguments for each. Okay, so if you want, you can actually go over to the documentation, and this should actually be command with the parentheses. I apologize. Okay, so you're gonna do at clients. So in this case, my bot instance is called client dot command with the parentheses. This is called a decorator, a function decorator. Okay, and you can also look at the documentation too. They have a whole bunch of different examples to give you, so it's really well documented. So I highly recommend you check it out. Okay, but pretty much every single command is always going to take in the context parameter, no matter what, which we can write short for CTX. Okay, and every other argument after that are going to be every other parameter after that is going to be your command arguments. Okay, so for example, the CTX is the context, and that contains basic information about, it contains information. I can actually, let me just double check real quick. It should say right over here. I don't want to get this wrong, but okay. It pretty much has information about the message, whether or not the command was invoked by a bot, well, the argument, prefix, invoked with, subcommand, a bunch of different stuff that comes with the context object. Okay, it has information about the guild, the channel, etc. So you can use this to your advantage. Okay, so what we're going to do is let's go ahead and just say CTX. Okay, so it has the channel object as a property, so we can say ctx.channel.send hello, but we're gonna have to await this because send is a coroutine. Okay, so let's go ahead and invoke this command. So right now you're gonna see that our command is called hello. Okay, but we can actually change this as well, and I'll show you how to do that in just a sec. So let's go ahead and do -hello. You're gonna see it responds with hello. Okay, so if you haven't noticed already, basically whatever we call this function over here, that's gonna be the name of our command. Okay, but however, let's say for example, you don't want that to be exactly the name of the command, right? Maybe you want to, define this function something else. Let's just say hello command, right? So if we wanted to actually invoke this, we'd have to do hello_command, and then it would work. But what we could do actually is inside the parentheses over here in .command, we can actually specify the name of the command. And if you go over, I'm just trying to show you guys the docs so you can see where you can go to if you ever have any questions. Okay, but basically you can see right over here, command, you can specify the name, you can also specify the CLS, which I'm not too sure what that is, but yeah, don't worry so much about that. Okay, so we're gonna say name, we'll just call this hello. And I think you can also specify aliases too, yeah, right over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this real quick. So let's say -hello, and notice how that works. So if I try to do hello_command, that obviously doesn't work anymore because I specified the name. And let's go ahead and specify some aliases. So let's say alias, I think it's aliases, yeah. Okay, and this is, I think, a list. Yep, a list. So we can go ahead and say let's try HE, HL. Okay, let's save. And notice how every time I save, I don't have to restart. I don't have to go into my terminal, Control C out of it, and then run the command again, because of nodemon, it auto restarts for us, which is awesome. Okay, so let's try hello. Okay, what else do we have? We had HE, HL, and hello. the basic name. And notice how basically every single alias that I have over here is going to work with this command, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so now you can see, you can probably guess like why using a commands framework is going to be very useful. Because if you don't use the commands framework, what you'd have to do is you'd have to handle a simple client, you'd have to handle a simple on message event like this, and this would take in the message parameter. And then you'd have to obviously check if the message was sent by, the bot, right? And you'd have to return. And then you'd have to, check what the message.content is. So for example, if message.content, you have to also worry about case sensitive and all that kind of stuff. You basically have to do all these checks manually yourselves. Okay. However, with the framework itself will pretty much handle all of the, which I guess all of the easy stuff and sometimes the hard stuff for you. You just basically have to understand how to use it. Okay. So let's go ahead and create another command. Let's go ahead and do client.command, and let's call this, I don't know, role. I guess, yeah, let's call it the role command, and we can say aliases. So we're basically going to simulate a roll dice command. So we're going to say r roll dice, r dice, or let's just say, I think that should be it for now. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead, and of course, like I said, if you want to check what other properties you can pass in, just go to the documentation, go to API reference, and click on command, and it'll pretty much give you a whole bunch of stuff that you can pass in. Okay, like usage, aliases enabled. Okay, because you can also disable commands too. Okay, and I'll show you guys how to do it as well. Checks. Okay, you can also check the permissions, like the person who invoked the command, if they have specific permissions. You can check if the command is on cooldown. And like I said, there's a whole bunch of stuff, and it's very important to understand how to use this. So let's call this function roll dice command ctx. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna say let's just say await ctx .send roll dice command works. Okay. Obviously, what you'd want to do is you'd want to generate a random number between 1 to 6 or 1 to 12, depending on how many dice you have. Okay, I just want to show you again the basics of this. So let's just do r. What is it? Roll dice. R dice, and then roll. Very, very simple. Okay, let's go ahead and do one more command, and we're gonna go ahead and pass an argument this time. Because right now, if I do that -r4. You can see that right now that will work, but we also want to make sure we're handling our arguments as well. Now, fortunately, we can do that as well with the commands framework. So let me go ahead and go to the docs so I can show you where to find that. So basically, you have to take in the arg parameter, or the arg as a parameter. So if I go ahead, let me go ahead and write another command. So let's do client.command. Let's just say let's see, assign role. We're not actually going to assign the role, but I'm just going to show you how this would work. So let's see, aliases will be add role, async def add role command. So it's going to always take in the context. Okay, that's very important. It's always going to take in the context object, and we're also going to take in an argument. So let's just, instead of sending something back, let's just print out what arg is. And we're going to look at our console. So let's just do assign role, I think is what I called it. Yep. And let's see. Oh, notice how we get an exception, right? It says arg is a required, arg is a required argument that is missing. Okay, it's throwing that exception because basically we're expecting an argument, but we weren't given it. So let's try assign role, and let's just say member. And now it's going to work. So you notice how we're printing that argument to the console. And of course, I can also specify more args. So I can say, arg1, arg2, arg3. And of course, if I don't meet this requirement, it's going to throw an exception. So watch this. Let's log arg1 as well as arg2 and then arg3. I keep saying log, but what I really mean is prints because I'm coming from a Node.js background. So let's just go ahead and do, what's the alias? Add role. Add role. Let's just say member. Let's just say one more. What else? Developer. And if I do that, you're going to see arg3 is a required argument that is missing because we passed in arg1 and arg2, but we didn't pass in arg3. Okay, but let's just say, what if we don't know how many arguments we want to take in, right? So fortunately, the library actually allows you to customize that. And if you look right over here, you can see sometimes you want users to pass in an undetermined number of parameters, and it says the library supports this similar to how variable list parameters are done in Python. Okay, and if you want to basically allow them to pass in however many arguments they want, you just have to specify the asterisk in front of it, and we're going to do that right over here. So because obviously, if you don't know, you don't want to have a fixed number of arguments like this. That would look very, very ugly. Okay? So instead, we can just basically do asterisk arg or args. I don't think the parameter name matters too much. Actually, I think it does. I'm not sure. Actually, let me try. So if I do this, let's just print arg, and let's see what happens. So let's go and do assign role hello 1, 1, 2, 3. And yeah, it doesn't really matter. You can call it whatever you want. Okay. And obviously we get I think this is called a tuple. It's called or I'm not sure what that's called, but it's definitely not a list. But you can see, basically, yeah, we basically have all of our argument parameters over here. And if I want to reference it, I can just reference it by the index. So if, for example, we have hello, that would be at index 0. And then 1 is at index 1, 2, 3, and etc. Okay. And yeah, it even says since the arg variable is a tuple, you can do anything you would usually do with 1. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. And of course, this would also work if we didn't pass in any parameters at all. Okay, it just gives you an empty tuple. So of course, you can kind of think about what you can do with this. For example, if you have a command that allows people to assign roles themselves, you would do, hyphen add role. And you can check, okay, is the tuple empty? If it is, then that means you have to tell them, hey, you need to pass in an argument here because you can't pass in nothing. All right. And like I said, there's a whole bunch of other stuff too. There's keyword only arguments. And you can also, so basically you can handle the parsing yourselves if you really need to. Okay. There's a whole bunch of different stuff. And I highly encourage you guys to check the documentation, go through it, definitely take the time and invest into it and understand really how the framework itself works. Okay. And knowing how to use it will definitely, make your bot development process much more fun, in my opinion. When I went from using the regular library and then I started using the framework itself, I actually really enjoyed using it a lot. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I just want to show you guys a couple of basics. We're going to obviously cover more later on in the next couple of videos. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.